I always thought my father left me a simple wooden house, but I never expected to find a glowing digital countdown timer hidden inside our 100-year-old grandfather clock, ticking down to the exact hour of my 30th birthday, the day every firstborn male in my family has mysteriously died. Hey Reddit, I'm writing this from the basement of my childhood home, and my hands are literally shaking. My name is Julian. Until last Monday, I thought I was just an ordinary guy, living a quiet life as a night shift library archivist in a small town in Maine. I don't make much money, maybe $40,000 a year. I've always been a bit of a loner, preferring the company of dusty old books and historical records to people. My father, Silas, passed away 6 months ago. He was an eccentric, silent man who spent his entire life working in his private workshop in our basement. He always kept the basement locked, and the one rule in our house was never touch the grandfather clock in the study. After he died, he left the house to me. But there was a strange condition in his will. I had to live in the house alone for at least 1 full year before I could sell it. If I broke that rule, the property would immediately go to a mysterious private organization called the Chronos Initiative. For the first 5 months, everything was peaceful. But last week, a strange, suffocating atmosphere started creeping into the rooms. It started with small, unexplained noises. Every night, exactly at 3:14 a.m., I would hear a faint, chilling mechanical whirring sound coming from the study. It sounded like gears grinding together, but much faster than a normal clock. Whenever I went to investigate, the sound would abruptly stop the moment my hand touched the doorknob. The air in the study always felt freezing cold, and the smell of old copper and ozone would fill my lungs. Then came the second clue. I started noticing that my personal belongings were being moved. My car keys, which I always left on the kitchen counter, would be found in the bathroom. My watch would be set exactly 10 minutes behind. At first, I tried to convince myself I was just being paranoid. But then, things took a terrifying turn. Last Thursday, I returned home from my shift at 4 a.m. As I walked up the driveway, I looked up at the second-floor window of my bedroom. The lights were off, but I saw a distinct shadow standing behind the curtain. A tall, thin figure, completely motionless, staring down at my car. My heart hammered against my ribs. I ran inside, searching every single room, every closet, under every bed. But the house was completely empty. The doors and windows were locked from the inside. I sat on the kitchen floor, shivering, feeling like I was trapped in a psychological trap. Who was watching me? And how did they get in? The next afternoon, the anxiety became unbearable. I decided to search my father's old study. In the corner of the room, dominating the space, was the massive grandfather clock. It had been broken for as long as I could remember, the hands permanently stuck at 11:50. But as I stood near it, I noticed something odd. The heavy brass pendulum was vibrating. Not swinging, but vibrating with a high-frequency hum that sent shivers down my spine. I hesitated. My father's warning echoed in my mind. Never touch the grandfather clock. But the fear was stronger than the rules. I opened the glass door, reached out, and touched the brass pendulum. It was burning hot. Looking closer, I noticed a tiny seam running along the edge of the brass cylinder. It was a hollow casing. I grabbed a small screwdriver and pried it open. Inside, there was no clockwork. Instead, there was a sleek, black digital device with a small, bright blue LED screen glowing in the dark. It was a countdown timer, and the numbers on the screen were ticking down. 3 days, 12 hours, 44 minutes, 12 seconds. What was my father doing? I decided to search his locked basement. I grabbed a heavy sledgehammer from the garage and smashed the basement door lock. The wooden door splintered open, and I descended into his dark workshop. The room was filled with old blueprints, copper wire, and strange electronic parts. On his work desk, under a layer of dust, was a thick, leather journal. I opened it and began to read my father's handwriting. The horrifying truth began to unfold. My grandfather wasn't just a clockmaker. He had worked on a highly classified military project in the 1960s involving a device that could target a specific person's heart rhythm from a distance and slowly shut it down. He had stolen a prototype and hidden it deep beneath the foundation of this house. But why? He wanted to ensure his heirs would never abandon this family home. My father's journal explained the terrifying rules of this machine. The grandfather clock in the study was the receiver. It tracked my heart rate and location. If I left this house for more than 48 hours, the device would trigger a fatal heart attack. And the most chilling part? The device was programmed to permanently shut down on the victim's 30th birthday. I turned the page and saw a list of names. Every single firstborn son in my family for the last 150 years had died on their 30th birthday because they tried to escape this house. And my 30th birthday was exactly 4 days from now. My father had spent his entire life in this basement trying to build a jammer to destroy the signal and save me. But he had run out of time. His last journal entry read, "I have failed. The signal is locked onto Julian. If he leaves, he dies. He must stay inside and survive until the clock hits 0. That is the only way the system resets." Now, we are in the present moment. Today is the morning of my 30th birthday. The countdown timer on the blue screen reads 0 hours, 15 minutes, 3 seconds. The air in the house has become so heavy it feels like breathing liquid lead. My chest feels tight, a dull ache spreading through my left arm. I can feel the invisible force tightening around my heart. I am sitting on the floor of the study, staring at the clock. If the journal is right, in 15 minutes, either the system will reset and I will live, or my heart will stop. 5 minutes left. The vibration in the room is so loud my ears are ringing. My phone screen is flickering wildly. 1 minute left. My heart is beating at what feels like 200 beats per minute. I can barely breathe. The blue light is glowing so bright it's blinding. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. 1. The ticking stops. The high-pitched hum vanishes instantly. The heavy air lifts. I gasp, taking a massive gulp of fresh air. My chest pain disappears. I survived. The system reset. The curse is broken. It has been 3 hours since the timer hit 0. The physical relief is indescribable. I feel like a new man. I've already packed my bags. I am leaving this house today, and I am never coming back. But 10 minutes ago, as I was carrying my suitcase down the stairs, I heard a sound that made my entire body freeze. It was the distinct, crisp sound of a mechanical tick-tock, tick-tock, coming from the study. I walked slowly into the room, my heart in my throat. I looked at the grandfather clock. The hands, which had been stuck at 11:50 for 20 years, were now moving. But they weren't moving forward. The hands are slowly, steadily ticking backward. And as I stood there, paralyzed with fear, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was an email notification from an unknown sender. The subject line read, "The Chronos Initiative." I opened it. It was a copy of my real birth certificate. The one I found in my father's desk was a forgery he had created to keep me from panicking. According to the official government registry in this email, my actual birth date is tomorrow. And as I look at the grandfather clock ticking backward, the blue digital screen inside the pendulum has just lit up again. It reads 24 hours, 00 minutes, 0 seconds, and it is counting down. And just like that, the feeling of survival vanished, replaced by a cold, paralyzing dread that seized my chest. The calendar on my father's desk was a lie. The birth certificate that had given me hope was a forgery. My 31st year didn't begin today. It begins tomorrow. And the heavy oak clock in the study isn't stopping. It is ticking backward, and the digital display inside the pendulum is counting down again, 24 hours. My phone buzzed again in my hand. The email from the Chronos Initiative had a second attachment. It was an old, digitized black and white photograph from 1968. In the photo stood my grandfather, Silas Vance Sr., standing next to 3 men in dark suits in front of this very house. But what made my breath hitch was the caption underneath. Project Chronos, Terminal Phase. Subject, Silas Vance III. Silas Vance III. That is my father's legal name. A horrifying realization washed over me. My father wasn't trying to save me. The diary, the blueprints, the jammer, it was all a beautifully constructed trap. He didn't die of heart failure 6 months ago. He had successfully passed his 31st birthday, reset his own timer, and handed the cursor of death to me to secure his own survival. In our family, the firstborn didn't die of a curse. They were sacrificed by their own fathers to pay the debt to the Chronos Initiative. Right then, a low, scraping sound echoed from inside my empty bedroom closet. My heart hammered in my ears. The faint text notification buzz from before was followed by a slow, rhythmic tapping on the closet door from the inside. I didn't run. I couldn't run. If I left the property line, the tracker would spike my heart rate to 200 and kill me instantly. I grabbed the heavy sledgehammer I had used to break into the basement, stepped into my bedroom, and stood in front of the closet. The tapping stopped. With a roar of pure survival instinct, I swung the sledgehammer, smashing the wooden closet door to splinters. The closet was empty, but the back wall of the closet had a small, rectangular metal panel that had slid open. Inside the dark wall cavity sat a small, military-grade radio transmitter, blinking with a steady green light. Next to it lay my father's wedding ring and a small, handwritten note in his exact handwriting. The note read, "Forgive me, Julian. The system requires a beating Vance heart to keep the generator powered. If I didn't forge your certificate, you would have left the house, and we both would have died. I had to choose, but I left you one escape. The generator is buried under the old well in the backyard. Smash the primary core before the clock hits 0. It will free you, but it will end me wherever I am hiding. Choose wisely." My hands shook. It was the ultimate psychological test. My father was alive, hiding somewhere in the world, living on my borrowed time. The clock was ticking. 23 hours left. I didn't hesitate. I ran to the backyard, dragging the heavy sledgehammer. The old concrete well was sealed with a rusted iron grate. I threw my entire weight into the hammer, smashing through the concrete and the rusted iron. Beneath the dirt, 10 feet down, sat a glowing, humming cylindrical metal generator. It was pulsing with a low-frequency vibration that made my teeth rattle. This was the monster that had kept my family caged for 3 generations. I jumped down into the cold dirt. I raised the sledgehammer. If I smashed it, I would break the curse forever. But I would also kill the father I thought I loved, the man who had betrayed me. With a scream of anger and defiance, I brought the hammer down on the generator's glass core. The glass shattered. A bright, blue electrical spark erupted, throwing me backward against the dirt wall. The humming stopped. The vibration in my bones instantly dissolved. Silence. Beautiful, pure silence filled the yard. I climbed out of the well, covered in dirt and sweat, and walked back into the study. The grandfather clock had stopped. The digital display was completely dead. The hands were frozen, but not at 11:50. They had stopped at exactly 12 o'clock. My phone buzzed one final time. It was a news alert from a local paper in Switzerland, dated just 10 minutes ago. Unidentified American tourist, Silas Vance, found dead of sudden cardiac arrest in a Zurich hotel. It was over. The debt was paid, and the cage was broken. I was finally, truly free. Hey Reddit, if you're reading this, I survived. I sold the house today, and the land is being cleared. But before I close this chapter of my life forever, I want to ask you a question. If you found out your entire life was a countdown timer controlled by the people you loved most, what would you have done? If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, and you're glad Julian made it out alive, please hit that follow button, like this video, and share it with your friends. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on the ending. I read every single one of them. Thank you for listening, and stay safe out there. You never know what's ticking inside your own walls.